high can you swing?
I don't know.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
You can literally do way better than that. Oh my gosh, 6 people? Yeah. You want to go down?
Which one of you ate too many cookies before supper?
We like that.
That's why that hammock broke.
I was the one that was sleeping.
How was the art museum?
Great.
Was it? Yeah. Well, times I didn't hear
Welcome.
Let me sit.
So I just don't want all my film.
I'm so sorry. That does count.
You know these guys, right?
Well, right?
So what I'm sorry you're traveling. What's her name? Our grandmother.
Where is your mind?
And these days you don't risk it. She was in the kitchen.
And in about 95 or 96. That was easy. No, you guys go up to our house.
Hang it in there? Yeah, it is. I'm enjoying watching all the little kitties run around.
Eat every day?
Yeah.
Every day, guys!
Some people say multiple times a day. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but
You tell Josie about this before she
Sway and smile, everybody, at least once. So I got this running, so it's happening. Say something clever.
don't say.
I need action. Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Then the next week, okay, with somebody else.
Cry that you're dropping the hat.
They are. We like to feed them.
Grandmother.
I know.
Someone from the church read my
Well, it's clearly a friend.
Cheers. I think over by the house. That way you won't throw in those people's dinner plate. Right?
I want to pretend I'm at the same table.
I know, exactly. So you put
I have some like that, but I have some around here.
This might vary. It's like most of the maps are like that.
My tamarind marks.
like there.
Was it always that? And it's that way they're trying to.
Hi, Sean.
Here's Sean, here's the red bike. You want the green bike?
That's what I was gonna say. I'm thinking,
Alice May Morgan from how these names were done. Sort of
Because you're coming in from where?
For me to go from here to
Group in just a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna go keep on trying.
Good.
So that's why I sent to you and said, is somebody bringing me? Did you bring Marty and in one trip with the other people? No.
I'm not sure what's in it.
They never come from Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, put salad on the carrot cake.
The carrots are more popular than the salad.
Yeah, you got plenty of meat.
Because I understand that. Oh, she's BB. I heard Jeff is Bobby.
You probably don't know where a company store is, but there was a time when there was an important. And then the second workout, I used to see.
Oh, I got a smile. Good.
Beautiful, but like, I didn't find my idea sound as good as Spanish. I know. Oh no. I wanted to try.
You don't have to eat it, Bubba. I'll hold it for you. Papa can eat it.
Pepa, you have a cloud.
The newcomers.
This is Betty's sister's oldest child, Jim Lux.
Yes.
Jim, Wendy, Rachel, Sarah, and
She looks like that.
oldest and the youngest. The oldest and the youngest, right?
Oh.
Otherwise, it would have been too many lines.
All right, who's next?
I've never met you before. No. Well, maybe I did, but you were a little baby.
This is our good friend.
Wasn't there though, I'm sorry to say. Vic. You like coming up here? Like we're on BB and Pop.
say, hey, buddy.
With all their environmental items. I'm a lot involved with TVs.
I am.
Yeah,
Nara, it's like the coat when the coat's on the head.
No, I don't want to dump it.
It's a waste of margarita, man. Yeah, you guys should get some. And we have some salt.
Hey. That almost hit that guy.
One of my favorite memories is going to be that I started bringing her clothes of mine, hand-me-downs. I love hand-me-downs. I love sharing clothes, and as she was losing weight and wanting more warmth, I shared clothes with her, and she was always so careful to be wearing something that I gave her. And she would just be so happy to show it to me. And it's just always gracious. I'm really going to miss her, and but I can see her living on in all of you. And that's really special to see her.
Thank you.
You say I'm putting it in at 6:15 or whatever time it is. Because that will help you remember what time it was you put it in. And about 45 minutes later, we were putting on the next board, and we were faced with the dilemma of, do you put the board on so that it's parallel to the last board you put on, or level to the horizon? And I explained to Brian that you focus on level, which is the same logic to how you slice bread. And when you're slicing bread, every slice should be vertical. Don't try to make it parallel to the last slice. Make it vertical. And every time you slice, each slice should be vertical. And that's what
Tyrone Yates, my wife, tapped me just a minute ago and said, be sure and keep it short.
That's good advice for everybody. I think everyone.
But I can think of something that's short and sweet. Every time I would visit the house here, and Mrs. Wells was here, or out at Spooky Ridge, quality of saying, Mom, this is Tyrone Yates, my friend. Then her mom, Mrs. Wells, would look at her and say, Vic, you don't have to introduce him every time. I know who he is.
No over-introducing needed.
That's sober. So I had the pleasure of only meeting her one time. So I feel like a one and one.
Keep it short.
No kidding. So, and it was sitting right here, and Vic had a dinner, and I had a chance to meet her that one time. And there was something about her that I knew that was going to be my only time.
Oh, really?
I did, because I knew. And I felt this urgency to also just get to know her. And I remember closing out every single person here. I don't really know if I spoke to anybody else here because I wanted to focus in on her so much. And it was like, and I felt like I could ask her questions of like her perspective on life and what she thought. And I think she felt like, to give me that bit of wisdom. So it was such a wonderful encounter. And I knew it was only going to be that one encounter. And it was truly a blessing for my life. She really was a blessing to everyone.
And I love that because it's like, that is life. We only have those moments, but it can be the best moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it really was.
I couldn't get away with anything. I couldn't get away. I would try, and when you mentioned the hands on the face, and I remember as a kid just trying to be all smooth talking out of getting done with chores or stay up past my bedtime, and I could not get it past her. She would hold you in those eyes, and But it wasn't like mean stare, like my mom stare with my kids now. No, she just was like, you're really trying this. She would let you keep going. Whereas when I told him I was coming here, he was like, oh man, Betty and Howard, they were cool peeps. So if you know my brother, you know that's a lot for him to say. But I mean, it's true, they were cool peeps, you know? Like, they could transcend any social group, any demographic, any setting. And whoever, everybody said they commanded attention, not in a greedy way, but in like, I want to get to know them. I want to hear what they have to say.
And what I found out about Betty is she was boy crazy. And not only was she boy crazy, but the boys were crazy about her. So much that there was a reference of, you know, her being on the phone and her minister father who, you know, at nighttime he was ministering and that was the way to connect with his flock. And he would find that Betty was on the phone and she would kind of scurry away and he wouldn't get mad at her, but he was like, Betty, I need the phone. We come in with the wheelchair, he sees her, and he's like, Betty, I'm getting your coffee. And he goes over, gets her coffee. Is it too, you know, he was worried that he poured it too high for her. So I'm just like, at 97, she's got game, man. She's got the boys catering, so.
And so not only that, she did that for a term or two. They offered her a full-time job. And so her ambitious daughter, you know, it's like, yeah, my mom's professor at the community college. And she lasts one term, and then she goes back to part-time. And she said, I didn't like it. I didn't have any energy for sex. So it's like, okay, work part-time and you have a good sex life.
What is more important?
Betty was married to my father's brother, so she was my aunt, and she taught me cartoons. She was patient beyond belief, taught me wonderful, and I could almost sense that Aunt Betty would have loved this party. Like, she would have been holding court out here. So whether you have a glass or not, because I sense her presence here, let's hoist a toast. Hoist a toast to our lovely Aunt and Grandma Betty. Mom, Nino. May she live forever.
Cheers. Well done. Franklin.
Yeah. I'm Franklin Wells. I'm Betty and Howard's oldest child. And two things I remember very fondly was making homemade marmalade and baking homemade bread with my mother. And very touched to have you all here.
Nice memory, Frank.
You know, whatever else. And, you know, we were college kids. We didn't care. But but while we're eating, she then comes to the dining room and holds up the sweatshirt. It's like an extra large. Maybe it says Tommy Hilfiger really big on it or something. And she says, all right, boys, which of you wants this? And they never kind of looked at each other. They all look at me like, are we supposed to take it? And after a moment, she's like, well, why don't any of you want it? I'm like, you know, it's a really ugly sweatshirt. And I'm sure she got it for free. I mean, like, she definitely didn't buy it, but she thought for sure someone would want it. And but everyone got a kick out of it. And I loved how much my friends connected with and really loved her. And she cared about them and loved them as well. But it's easy for like a grandparent to love your grandkids' friends, but it's weird for a bunch of teenagers to think that an old woman is fun. But everyone really liked her, and you know, as John said, like, she would just hang out with us. You know, we're playing games in the living room, we're watching a movie. She'd just be there too, and you know, chiming in. And I think part of the humor that was great about her was her. She had this good self-deprecation. She enjoyed being teased about all of her quirks and could laugh at herself. And then would also tease me about my quirks and laugh at me, and I love that about her.
Your friends love that.
And my friends loved it when she would tease me about stuff.
Those are great. Claire.
I'm Claire, spouse of Stu, mom of Wally, and this is Louisa Elizabeth.
A little louder.
Named after Betty.
So I met. I met Nino about a month after Stu and I started dating in DC. She and Frank drove over to visit.
And Big Pop.
Was my mother too?
He was there too, but something that you forget.
And this was my first time meeting her, and I was very nervous. It was I was going to cook them dinner on Friday, so I left work early. I went and got like 2 fancy chickens. I was going to roast chicken. I was going to make mashed potatoes, make a cake. So I had to impress Stu's family. This was obviously before I knew them. And she did, as Josie said, she held my face and was like, yes, you'll do. And she loved that chicken dinner and still talked about it, every time I saw her. And she was...
It was her birthday, wasn't it?
Was it birthday? All right. We've been together a while. I'm clearly forgetting some details. She was a great dinner guest, as always, and was so warm.
She loved Claire's hostessing and cooking. And,
yes.
The way Claire would take care of her.
Did you guys go skiing together? Because she would talk about you guys skiing.
We went skiing, but not with me. 90 years old.
When I was there, she had pictures that she was.
We probably.
I also had a grandmother named Betty who died a couple years after we got married. And so I adopted Nino as my grandma to spoil. So I would break her. Her favorite was I would mail her butterscotch chips. And she would keep them on the mantle. She was not very good at spoiling herself, so I couldn't do it.
Diana?
I'm Diana Stewart Sinton. I am Betty's great niece. Her brother Don was my grandfather, Don Stewart. Her brother was Don Stewart Jr., and then my dad was Don C. Stewart III. One of my first memories, Betty has just been this figure my entire life. I just always adored her. But I do remember my husband and I had gotten married. We were in our late 20s. We were living in Western New York. And we had bought our very first house. And this was before internet, cell phones. I don't even remember what we had then. But somehow she knew our address. And she called or wrote or something and said, we'd like to come over and visit. It was like, wow. It was like, this is the first time as young adults having a house that like family's going to come visit me. This is really exciting. And I've heard this kind of pattern before. I mean, they loved to travel. They loved to visit people. They arrived at maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had dinner with them, and they left promptly the next morning. It was a very just a wonderful visit, and just made us feel like we were we were adults, but she made us feel like, I don't know, just special, like real adults who would be able to have a house that would host family for a dinner kind of. And then another thing that much more recently that was great is our son Eric took a gap year after high school. He graduated in 2014 high school, and that summer decided he was going to bike across the country from New York to California. And we looked at the map and tried to figure out places he could stay. And I said, well, Betty and Howie are there. And so I called Betty and asked whether Eric could stop by their house. And Eric had met her before, but didn't really didn't know each other much. And sure enough, Eric moved his bike to Cleveland. And she and Howie, and maybe Frank might have probably met them. Eric, I think, stayed 2 nights there and then continued on. And Betty just was so excited about that entire thing. The rest of the summer, I was supposed to call her every few days and give her an update on where he was. And sometimes I would forget, and then she would call me and want to know what the status was.
She would talk to us about Eric's.
Oh, really?
Eric's coming next week.
Eric left a pair of socks in my foot. And they were opposite socks.
They had elastic probably.
They had elastic.
The young man to pause. In a joyful voice, he said, I have the privilege of participating in the building of this great cathedral. So strong, it will stand as a holy lighthouse for 1,000 years. And when I think of my mom building her cathedral at the dining room table with her toast parties and her relatives and her friends who were like relatives, I just feel that her cathedral is here.
Yay.
So, thank you.
And then we have one third and final speaker, and then after that, we hope that if anyone has anything they feel called to share, that they will. But our fourth and final one is a niece of Elizabeth, and it's Marty Lifshire.
My Aunt Betty was one of my most favorite people in this entire world. She was my father's brother's wife, and at a very young age I knew that she was something special, and that by just being in her presence, in her aura, she immediately invited me in and showered me with energy and warmth and love. It was almost like she had this magic pixie dust that immediately ignited me with all these good vibes, and I learned from her that the energy that you put out is the energy that you get back. And I could tell you numerous stories to exemplify these feelings, and that I always knew about Betty, but they were recounted on this Zoom call. I love that Zoom call. And the common theme that from neighbors in Cleveland to your childhood friends to all the loved ones, including the aide who took care of her. What was her name?
Well, there were several.
At the very end, but there was someone on the call.
Zoom, was it Yoko? Maybe?
So,
Yoko?
yeah, who spoke. Wasn't going to speak and then ended up choosing to speak. So, all talking about her warmth and her humor and her irreverence, which is a lot of what Angela talked about, her honesty, sometimes a little brutal. But the intention, whoever mentioned that, the intention behind it was love. So you knew where it was coming from. So I think she brought out the best of ourselves in us. And I wanted to mention people who know me right now. I have an empty nest. My kids I say they're cooked. I mean, my youngest is graduating this year, and I've kind of taken on this auntness. I've taken in wayward nieces and nephews, and I learned from the best.
I remember at Cornwall, where was Grandma and Grandpa's, my Grandma and Grandpa's, were there. He was the chaplain for the Fresher camp in New York City, and we all went as kids and enjoyed it immensely. But I remember Betty and Howie, as a young married couple, making their bed together. I mean, it was such a tender way of putting it on either side of the bed, pulling it up in such a loving way. I said, that must be what a really happy life will be for. I mean, as a young girl, I thought that's just wonderful. And all their life they were like that. They just played against one another.
They took a bath together every night. Well, most nights.
I mean, they go to restaurants and have a half.
Can I interject? We saw Kitty Kroll, who was the last cousin of that generation, and her recollection was she was a young woman when they had just gotten married, and she was like, "Ooh, they're so like kissy, touching each other." Like she was like, "Oh my gosh," that was her impression.
And the other thing I wanted to tell the young people here is that Betty knew at the end of her life all these old hymns and old poems, and if you could just get your kids to really learn them, memorize them, because when they're old, I hate to tell you, I can't remember what happened to me 2 minutes ago, but I can remember the poems and the old hymns, so I just recommend you teach them because it will stay. Nothing else might work but music. When you do the act for Alzheimer's patients, they love music. They love the old songs they grew up with. And their feet start tapping. So anyway, I highly recommend you do that with your kids.
I'd like to recall something that happened at the '98 reunion in Canada when the Stuarts and the Wellses gathered for Howard's and Betty's 50th wedding anniversary, and it happened to be Lawson's and my 20th, and we were, many of you here at that gorgeous place in Canada, and on the Sunday of the weekend, we went to the pavilion, and Mary led us in a very informal, music-filled service, and Howard, a man of few words, was moved to speak. And he said, a little like Angela this morning, where you said, or this afternoon you said, I'm a pastor, but even I don't know if there's a heaven. So Howard, whom we admired and loved and so on, said, I have a lot of doubt about what God is and what this is all about, meaning church. And he said, but when I'm with you, this is church. And I know that this is all that matters. And I think of Mary leading that service 40 years ago, whatever it was. And what a beautiful thing it was for my dad, who was often in Mom's kind of shadow. She was the bright light. He was the steady rock, giving us that little theological wisdom. So. And you're all invited to our house for dinner tonight. And if you need rides, let people know.
When I was little, it would be that excitement of like, Big Fire coming tonight. And knowing that they were going to come stay. They would come stay with us for a week at a time, every month or two. And I don't know, it was like the best feeling in the world. It was like Christmas or something. It's like, Big Fire coming. But then even as a grown up, Claire and I would have a free weekend and we would drive to Cleveland just to see Big Five because it was just fun to be with them. And and I would call people, there's like, oh, call your grandma, and but I loved calling her. It was just fun to talk to her. And
she never stayed on the phone long.
She always wanted to. You gotta say, don't want to pay too much for that long distance call. Okay, that's enough. And when I was out of college, my first year out of college, I was figuring out what I was doing. And I went and lived in Cleveland for about a month with Big Pop, and just got to sort of be part of their daily routine. And they would get up and they'd make toast, and Big Pa would read the newspaper to Nino, and they would putter around the kitchen and take naps and watch Jeopardy and the News Hour, and it was just really nice getting to be part of their life, and I she really was one of my favorite people, and I feel lucky that I got to be so close with her for so many years.
I think we all thought we were her favorite.
Right?
We all were. Oh no, wait, I was.
You know, the toughness that you talked about, sitting out in the cold, just reminds me of, we talked a lot about how she embraced simplicity and was very content, but there's also this strength and tough side of her. And I'm reminded of a couple things. One was, she would often sit with me while I was practicing the piano and would hold me to a very high standard, and I recall a couple times basically coming to tears because she was very insistent on fixing the mistakes that I was making, and I just felt like, oh, I'm not living up to this very high standard, and I'm not sure if she could tell that my eyes were watering, but I was trying to live up to her expectations, and then I think she did so much to take care of us, but one thing in particular was when I was about 13 and John was about 6, she and Big Pod drove the 4 of us out from Cincinnati to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is about 24 hours of total driving time. So we did it over 4 or 5 days. And obviously there's no iPads. I don't know what they did to the car, but it seemed to be no problem for them to just pile us in the back of the car.
You sing some songs?
We maybe have sang songs. I played games. I'm not sure, but I just remember loving that trip and loving to travel with them on our own. And then I guess the other funny story that I now use on my own kids is when they're complaining about breakfast, I'll sometimes tell them, well, when my grandmother used to make us pancakes, she would put all kinds of things into the pancakes, like sour milk and corn, and maybe it wasn't quite that bad, but it seemed like she was always
mashed potatoes,
rummaging around in the fridge, finding whatever she could, and dumping it into the pancake batter and mixing it up, and dousing it with syrup, and then we just needed to heat it up. So that's how you clean up.
Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I've laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I've laid my burden down. No more sickness, no more sorrow, since I've laid my burden down. No more sickness, no more sorrow, since I've laid my burden down. I'm going home to live with Jesus, since I've laid my burden down. I'm going home to live with Jesus, since I've laid my burden down. Burden down, Lord, since I've laid my burden down. Burden down, Lord, since I've laid my burden down. glad hands with the angels since I've laid my burden down. I'm gonna shake glad hands with the angels since I've laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I've laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I've laid my burden down.